And now that we're a family podcast.
Well, Austin and Karaline Tolpin, first off, thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. You guys are giving us valuable time. I didn't realize, here you are, Karaline, you're nursing. You guys have in-laws at your house right now that you're missing out, hanging out with, and you decided to hang out with us, and we're honored. So thank you for doing that. For those of our listeners that maybe don't know who you are, can you guys do a quick introduction? Maybe who are Austin and Karaline Tolpin, and where do you live? Do you have children? What are you doing? What's the intro?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having us on here. It's an absolute honor. When you texted me, Elisha, and we're like, hey, do you guys want to be on the podcast? I was like, wow, really? Like, yes. Are you kidding me? So thanks for having us on here. My name's Austin Tolpin, and this is my lovely wife, Karaline Tolpin. Karaline is Katie's younger sister, and we live in Nampa, Idaho. So yeah.
Southern of you guys. And we have 3 kiddos.
Yep.
We've got a 2.5-year-old girl named Quincy, and we've got a 1-year-old Riggs. He's about 14 months now. And we have a 7-week-old Quade.
Yep.
So that's us.
Wow. That's amazing. And yeah, whenever we tell people, you guys live in Southern Idaho, they go, oh, you guys must see Karaline and Austin all the time. I go, no, like further than it is to Elisha's family or to Bend. And anyways, so I wish we saw you guys more, but this is a fun excuse to have a conversation. So
yeah. So your newest is 7 weeks old. That's incredible. Now, something that am inspired by, I'm intrigued by when it comes to your guys' story is the fact that, Austin, you were 18 years old when you guys got married. And, as you were talking about earlier, you guys got pregnant on your honeymoon. Right. And I'm curious in your mind, if you can reflect back to that time when you were 18, what made you feel like, hey, I'm ready to get married? Because a lot of people will be in their mid 20s or late 20s, and I hear them say, I'm not ready to get married. I'm not ready to get married. So what was it for you that made you feel like, hey, I'm ready to get married?
Totally. Well, that's a good question. I think like anything big in life, any big decisions, it's never the perfect timing, right? And I think back to something my dad always told me growing up, which was, you will rise to the level of responsibility you are given. And so, the whole concept of, if you want to grow, then you need to go. You need to get out of your comfort zone. And that is the only way that's going to happen. And so for me, thinking back, I'm 18 years old when, met Karaline, went on our first day. I was like, I'm marrying this lady for sure. And I didn't know how long she'd stay on the market. So I was like, I didn't want to waste any time for sure. As amazing as she is. But that in mind, I was like, okay, I know what I want. I know that the Lord has blessed this. He gave me a tremendous peace about it. And so all that was left to do was to take action and to take the proper steps that I believed were needed in order to make it possible. And then also, and Karaline will touch on this too, and I'm thankful that she had this mindset. She didn't want to become a part of someone else's life. She wanted to build a life with somebody. And, at 18 years old, I, had barely anything to my name. I was just starting out and getting things going. I had a vision, and that's all she needed. And so I'm extremely thankful for that. But essentially trusting the Lord, understanding that He's going to guide me and He's going to sustain me, and just taking that leap of faith and moving forward with what I know He has given the stamp of approval on, I guess. Because He had given me so much peace about getting married, I was like, then we'll figure it out. So,
yeah.
Wow. And how was that for you, Karaline, marrying someone younger than you? Because you were young too, but you were a little bit older than Austin.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm about 3 years older than him. But for me, I always looked more at character versus what they had, because I was like, at the end of the day, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. So if the Lord chooses to take something away from someone, whether that be finances, whether that be their health, whether that be anything really in life, I'm like, are they going to do what's necessary to take care of me, take care of our family, continue on in what the Lord has called them to? And that's what I saw when I met Austin. I was like, the guy has character more than anything. And for me, when you have character, you can build whatever you want because you have certain mindsets in place that are really powerful. And you have just a certain foundation to build upon. And Austin definitely had a foundation, even though he was young. And for me, it was almost more comforting because I feel like when you're talking to someone older, or I had previously talked to guys that were a lot older than me, it was like you're going into past history. Where with Austin, he kind of just needed to prove to daddy that like he had a vision to go forward. But we weren't dealing with a lot of baggage, past relationships.
Praise the Lord.
There wasn't a lot of stuff to go over. So for me, that kind of gave me a peace of mind of like, wow, is kind of a blank slate in a lot of ways that, we get to move forward together. So
By the
I
Lord's
really liked it.
blessing, I was saved from a lot of turmoil in this world.
Wow.
Yeah, you just got the right one right out of the gate. You guys got
Yeah,
married,
was the
and
first woman I took out on a date ever. So yeah.
Wow. That, man, I love both of you said so many things that were great. Caroline, I love you highlighting that, character is one of those things that is a lot more steady and dependable than your health, than your financial situation, than, where you're living geographically. And so being able to see that early on, be like, okay, yeah, like the money's going to come and go. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away, but he's got faith, he's got character, and you can really follow that. And then Austin, I loved you quoting your dad, and that was just so surreal because your dad's been a huge influence in my life as well. We had your parents on the podcast a couple months back, Isaac and Angie Tolpin, and I remember him saying things like that and being like, "You're right. You rise to the level of the responsibility you've been given." And it was you mentioned, okay, you said like, okay, I'm going to do what's necessary. Would you mind walking us back and saying, like, was that very practical? Like, I got to find a place to live. I've got to get a job. When you said I got to do things that are necessary, what was kind of like the list?
Totally. So, well, thinking back, okay, so at the time, I had been working full time for a while living at home. So I was able to save. I had some money saved, nothing crazy, but I had a little bit of money saved. And I actually quit my job to go to JH Ranch and serve on staff with Karaline. And so that was a very interesting time in my life because I dropped everything to chase Karaline because I knew that the Lord had told me, like, this is your lady, so you better go after her. And I had no idea what I was going to do. Again, it was, I had the confidence that the Lord was going to lead me and the confidence that I would figure it out. And I know that I can learn and I'm willing to work hard. And just those two things make everything possible. Yeah. And so from there, I mean, I remember being at JH Ranch and I'm like, okay, wait, now like I had a date set to propose. No job lined up or anything. It's like, I know I'm going back home after this and we'll figure it out. For me, action steps were, networking. Your network is your net worth, right? A lot of people say that. And so I just reached out to my previous boss and I was like, hey man, just want to let you know I'm coming home. And what are you up to? And he's like, well, actually I have a project I'm working on. Right. And I was like, okay, so we'll go with that. Right. So I went back home and I just pursued everything that was possible and was able to get a job lined up. And it's by the grace of the Lord, right? He sustains us. He takes care of us. Lined up an apartment for us. So we had a place to live. And I had a job and everything else, from there, like we figured it out. Yeah. We found a church. We started going to church together. And
we had a car that broke down.
We had to figure out car issues, and we had to go into debt to get a better car, temporarily. Also, I had no credit. I mean, 18 years old, I didn't have a credit card, nothing. And I was like, okay, eventually I know I want to buy a house, right? Something. So I went into debt on a car loan just so that I could have debt to pay off to build credit. And so there was, things like that. We figured it out.
Nice.
I think that's the beauty of it too, is we were able to build our life together. It wasn't like, hey, I've got it all figured out. Why don't you come join me? I need a wife, right? So no, it was, you're the love of my life and I want to build a life with you. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, we can relate to being 21 and 24 and we had no credit and we were like,
yeah,
what on earth we want to buy a house? So kind of something that was running in the family was needing to get the credit. But you probably had good saving and spending habits going into marriage, which was helpful. So I want to know, Elisha and I have talked about this quite often, and that is family culture. Can we dive into family culture?
Sure. Hey, before we do, I just want to say that was a good call following Karaline to JH Ranch, because I could not imagine the stress that I would be under if like Katie and I were dating. She goes to JH Ranch. Like
the
everybody
coach is there.
Yeah.
Saying,
they're just around a ton of boys and all of a sudden God's telling them that they're supposed to marry someone else. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with you.
that.
Yeah.
No, it was like,
That's true.
I was like, I got to take out the competition if there is any and be the cream of the crop. So I'm going.
Nice.
Good for you.
Cool.
Good for you. Okay, so the Tolpins have a very strong family culture. Really admire their culture. And then the Johnson side, Karaline and my side have a very strong family culture as well. And sometimes this is a huge win-win situation in families, like I feel like it is in Elisha's and mine. And then sometimes it can be complicated. And so how have you guys come together and created Austin and Karaline Tolpin's family? Because I feel like you guys have done a great job of honoring and respecting both sides of your family, making both sides feel loved. And yet I feel like you guys are very much your own unit. So has that been very difficult? Have you both been totally willing to compromise on everything and be like, oh, I like this from your family. I like this from my family. How does that look for you guys?
I'll let you touch on this first.
Yeah, it's true. We did come from very strong cultures, but I think also being so young, we weren't like perfectly set in our ways. And I think although you have family value instilled into you, right? Like we knew who we were when we got married. At the same time, it wasn't like I've been doing something for a really long time this way. Like as in I'm an adult, I'm doing this. This is a habit in my life. We were still young enough and pliable enough, I guess, to be like, okay, I want to hear your side of the story. Here's mine. And there's definitely been some things that we've had to be like, okay, do we appreciate this about your family? Or was this just something that was done because it was done in your family? And so realizing, is this a good thing that we want to continue? Is this something that we want to leave out? And just having open communication and being willing to hear somebody else's side of the story. And I don't feel like it's been terribly hard because our family cultures, though very strong and different, because he's primarily from a household of boys. I'm primarily from a household of girls. The family dynamic was different, but I'd say a lot of the core values were the same. And so on that level, it was like we came together very seamlessly on core value stuff. And then when it came to like preference stuff or like my dad did this versus your dad doing this, we kind of just talked situation to situation and was like, okay, well, what are you going to do as dad of this house instead of like my dad, your dad? And kind of pulling from both pools and being like, what did we like? What do we appreciate?
Yeah.
What do we want to carry on? And what do we want to just kind of leave behind us?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have something to add.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the key component of everything you just said was communication and having those conversations. I think that in marriage, it's very important to have intentional conversations surrounding these topics, and not many people know to have those conversations or think to. And so just being aware of that, that's a great start. But then talking about it all and having that open communication allows you to work through those things. And like she said, too, neither of us were super set in our ways, but at the same time, like I knew what I believed and I was convicted in what I believe. And so is Karaline. But one good example would be holidays, for example. Johnson family doesn't celebrate Christmas. My family celebrates Christmas and Thanksgiving. Well, great solution to that would be we'll go to the Johnsons for Thanksgiving and we'll do Christmas with my family. Perfect, right? So little things like that. Yeah, it's been good. See.
Yeah, I feel like our dad really simplified things, just not celebrating Christmas.
I know.
Like every single one of us married couples, aside from Baylor and Sabrina, because I don't think either of them celebrate Christmas on either side. Yeah. So they're just loners for that holiday, but all the rest of us go to the in-laws.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here really quick because this is a limited time opportunity. And that is, I want you to be a part of Voetberg Music Academy's 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. But in order to be a part of it, you need to be enrolled in Voetberg Music Academy prior to week 1 of the 6 Songs of Summer Challenge, which is the first Tuesday in June. And so we're going to link down below how you can join Voetberg Music Academy. And then you'll also be able to see kind of the criteria for participating in the 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. Anybody that's part of the Voetberg Music Academy is free to join the 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. This is our most popular challenge of the year. We incentivize children to practice throughout the summer, to learn new songs, to share their music with others, and they get a badge when they complete the 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. They also get cash. That's right, cash money. We mail you a physical badge and a physical $10 bill when you complete Voetberg Music Academy's 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. And so whether it's you, whether it's your child, and you want to stay consistent in your practice throughout the busy summer months, now's the time to join Voetberg Music Academy and be a part of the 2025 Voetberg Music Academy 6 Songs of Summer Challenge. So check out below and join.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really works out. How has that been? Because we see you guys at events in Bend regularly. I mean, and it's been a wild couple of years with, Grandma Paula passing away, then Uncle Dwight passing away, then there being weddings. So there's been just an array of events that have led to us being together. And then, so that's busy, right? You guys are driving and you're staying with family. And then that's not to mention your side of the family, Austin. And I know you guys live a bit closer, to your side of the family, but has that been something where you guys have had to establish, I guess, boundaries, for lack of a better word, of like, okay, we can go to these events, we can't go to those events because, I mean, your family's growing, you've got a newborn, you've got young children, and loading in the car and going every which way for every event can run you ragged. And so how has that dynamic been?
Absolutely. Well, and that's a great point. I think it comes down to your priorities, right? And so we ultimately want to put it's the Lord for us, and then it's our marriage, and then our children, and then family, right? And it's in that order. And so if family starts to compromise our children, then we need to change things up. Or if children start to compromise our marriage, then we need to change things up, right? And make sure that we're making time for the right things. And to your point, we drove to Bend 7 times in 2024. And that was just our trips to Bend. And so in 2025, we were like looking back, okay, how was last year? It was amazing. We had lots of fun, but was it an unnecessary amount of stress on our family? Did we not feel rooted at home? Were we at church enough, right? I think we ended up making it to church maybe once or twice a month because we were gone every other week, right? And then you come back and you get sick because you're, going too hard. You know how it is. And so it's a lot, especially with little kids too. And a huge priority to me is to provide stability for my children. And I want them to feel rooted and like they have a home and they're at home the majority of the year in their routines with daily habits and all that. So this year, our strategy was we're going to be, and this, you can take this as you want, but we're going to be very low commitment on our side of things. Like we see everything in the calendar. We're not going to necessarily say yes to any of it. And that way, if we're able to, and we have bandwidth and we show up and everyone's stoked, right? But if we commit to everything like we did in 2024, then we feel like we have to be there. And so at least for 2025, coming off such a big year, we had to set some boundaries in that sense. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, big time
That's a hard
respect
thing
that.
to do.
Yeah, it is. And it's cool that you guys are taking it year to year because I think you have to, or even maybe smaller time frames too at different times. And it seems so obvious, but even you just saying, okay, God first and foremost, our faith, and then our marriage, then our children, and then family. Kind of like, oh, that's right. Like we need to assess that every time there is an outside commitment, even if it is, with family that we just adore and love being around. Is this at the expense of my children's health or their development or at our marriage? And that, it's not always easy, but it does simplify things,
Absolutely.
I think. Yeah. That's good.
Okay, so I'm curious, has anything taken you guys off guard in marriage? Or no? Were you like prepared for what marriage was going to be? How long have you guys been married? You've had 3 kids, but how many years?
4 years in October.
Yeah, 4 years in October.
Okay.
4 years, 3 kiddos.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
He's so unhappy.
Aww.
Taking us off guard. Man, that's a big question. Let me think about that one. Fascinating take.
That's, it's funny.
I feel like I'm more full of surprises than Austin. He's a little bit more predictable.
Nothing is really taking me off guard. I guess what's hard about that is I know marriage is not like beautiful and easy all the time. And we've had our moments for sure, but I don't want to dwell on those moments. And I kind of just like, we figure it out and we move past it and I never think about it again. And so now I'm like, man, I'm sure there have been things.
I think the biggest thing probably, I think it was easier transitioning to marriage for both of us, a little bit so because we were in big families and we were used to living with a ton of dynamics, like a ton, and people that would push your buttons on the regular. And, you just kind of get used to that style of living. So I felt like when I married somebody very opposite that doesn't often push my buttons, there were less things that were taking me off guard or like, I guess, annoying to me. Just because I was like, okay, I've handled worse or harder. Maybe that's the thing to say. I've handled harder. And so taking it step by step, I think has just been, I don't know. I feel like it's felt pretty seamless. Now, it hasn't been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's been fairly seamless. And I think learning to communicate in large families, learning how to work through conflict has really set us up to win in our marriage, because we're like, okay, this is just a conversation. Like in a conversation, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that took me off guard, I did think of one thing, was Austin. Austin was like, I'm not ready for the conversation right now. I'm a verbal processor. So I'm like, dude, let's get this out. And he's like, give me a moment, And I think you guys might be able to relate to this a little bit, but Austin used to get in the car and just be like, I'm going to go for a drive. And I was just freaking out. Like, what's he thinking? I just got so up in my head about stuff. I'm like, I need to process this now before I forget what I want to say. And, I'm freaking out at home, and Austin would just take off. And that was something that we actually had to work through, because I hadn't had somebody that would just like need to actually like physically leave the whole premise. I was just like, oh, okay, he really needs space. And for me, that really took me back. And we've had to actually work through that, because I used to feel so hurt and like abandoned that he would take off, even though he was just trying to clear his head. And it was for the better of our marriage and for the conversation. I just wasn't aware of that at the time. That was something that definitely took me off.
Very different communication styles, right? I am an internal processor and she's an external processor. And it's a beautiful thing, she compliments me and I compliment her. But yeah, I mean, it's been, one of those things. I always knew, like in marriage, like communication is the most important thing, right? A lot of people will say, right? So I always have that in the back of my head. I'm like, okay, I don't know how to communicate right now. So at least communicate. I don't know how to communicate right now. Let me go for a drive and I'll figure it out. Right. To me, that was like, okay, at least I can do that. But yeah, it's a work in progress for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you guys aren't alone in that.
Yeah. That's, I mean, like our story verbatim, I feel like, and it was exactly what you just said, Austin, and you probably learned it a lot faster than I did, that it actually, at the very least, saying, hey, I'm not ready to talk about this was enough to like, it was doing a service to Katie, because it wasn't fair of me, because I'm with you. I'm an internal processor thinking, hey, I need to think this through. I need some time. And Katie, got the same Johnson blood, that Karaline has, where she's like, hey, yeah, exactly. And it's like, let's just air it out right now. And I made the mistake of just kind of like, shutting down numerous times. And she's like, okay, well, this guy hates me and he's, never going to talk to me ever again. Whereas really all I needed to say was like, hey, I'm not ready to talk about this. Like, I'm willing to talk about it, just not right now. I need a second.
Absolutely. And I've made the same mistake too. Like, and we've had to learn how to, in those moments of, I don't know how to communicate, at least communicate that to her, right? Hey, I don't know how to communicate this right now. I need time. Give me a second. And I do want to have this conversation. But not in this very moment. Yeah.
But not right now. I think I read something somewhere too, because I feel like we came from a very aggressively communicating family, and most of us were women in the Johnston house. And so I think when we got married, I would be very aggressive in my communication towards Elisha. And I remember reading in one book where they were like, guys will shut down because the way that they're aggressive is physically. And so they don't want to hurt you or like lash out. And so like when a woman's coming at a man, like, hey, I need an answer, then they just like shut down to protect themselves and you. And I think that really helped me too. And thinking, oh, Elisha, because of my communication and like forcing this issue, he's just like, he's protecting all of us in this situation instead of like going at it with me, like, I would be like a sister or something like that. Anyways, it like, I don't know, made me view that differently, because I wanted to grow in that communication too, not forcing him into it.
That's why I wasn't so used to it. Cause you're right, Katie. Like we used to just like, if I'm talking with somebody, like the sister would come back at me with almost the same level of aggression, So it was like, we kind of met each other in the middle, and it was like, I'm having a problem with you, you're having a problem with me. So I wasn't used to that quiet shut down, but that I love that. I'm going to keep that here. Good stuff.
Yeah, he's
Like
protecting you. He's protecting you. So I'm curious as to how, transition into parenthood, because you guys were married and then you were pregnant first thing. And was that a part when you guys were dating and then engaged? Did you guys both have the desire, the plan to get pregnant as fast as the Lord would allow? And if so, what gave you the confidence, to be able to do that? What was there a plan there?
Mhm. So I remember we definitely had conversations before we were married, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think Karaline wanted to have kids like right away, as soon as possible, right? Am I right? Okay, yeah. And I wasn't fully there yet, and this is something that I'm struggling with right now, even in my thoughts of like, okay, we have 3 kids. I'm 22. We've been married 4 years. Like I just am thinking ahead, like the trajectory, right? What could happen? I don't know how many kids I want to have, but I also don't know, like, let's say I come to terms with, I don't want more than 5 kids. Okay, well, what do I do about it? I haven't found that answer yet. And there's, and it's this whole, in my mind, I'm like, part of me is like, okay, I just want to give it to God, right? He's completely in control. I'm going to trust him with that. But then again, I go back to like, well, it seems pretty obvious to me what would happen, right? Right?
Like if you drop a rock from a mountain, it falls.
Will it fall?
Will it hit? Yeah, it will. So, and we're 2 young, healthy people, and I know that's not always the case, and everyone's got a different journey, but so far, like we've been able to have children, no problem, right? And so, when we got married, I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know if we'd be able to get pregnant like very easily and right away. And so I just kind of like, I don't even know if I really came to terms with anything. I was just like, I know I don't want to do anything. I'm going to trust the Lord. And we got pregnant, and it's been a beautiful thing ever since. And I'm still like, I don't know, like, do I just continue to trust the Lord or what? I'm kind of just rolling.
It's an open conversation in our house right now.
It really is.
But when we first started dating, we read the book, 101 Questions Asked Before You Get Engaged or something. That is a book Daddy had us go through because it brought up a lot of good conversation. And so we went through that while we were at JH Ranch. And that was super helpful because they do give you question prompts that talk about children. We obviously both had the same basis of belief, which was children are a blessing. Of course, blessed is the couple that basically has their quiver full of them, right? So we were like, we obviously see kids as a blessing, as an add to our family. But at the same time, I do think there was like this, okay, my mom didn't start having kids till 27. You're 19 and a dad. And I'm just like, holy smokes, we could have like 50 kids, if the Lord continues to open my womb. And obviously, like, he closes and opens womb as he pleases. So we don't want to take it for granted.
Right,
and I think that's what we come back to is like, we don't want to take this season of life for granted because it has been so easy, and it's not so easy for a lot of people out there, but at the same time, we're also like, is it just open season on children? Because that could get a little out of control a little fast. And although I feel healthy in like every pregnancy I've been very ready for, it's also just like, I feel like I have my hands very full right now with 3, 2 and under. And it's been good.
One thing I will say too is going back to priorities. I will always prioritize Karaline and her health over having more children. And I feel very convicted about that. And I think that's biblical. And so for me, like if I feel like, she needs a break for her health, mentally or physically, like we're going to make that happen. But whether or not I want to make a permanent decision on when we're going to stop having children, I don't know how to answer that. And it's something that I think about. So what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. No. We have been. So where you are, I think it was after our third, because we were in the same boat you guys are in. And I thought, it was so fast, 3, 2 and under. And then I hear you guys, when you called me and said you were pregnant, I was just like, oh my goodness. Like that is where I really started to freak out. Because obviously it was a gift, but I just was like, this is insane. You just start doing the math if the Lord continued to bless. And I think something that really like encouraged my heart was, I think I'd always heard like trusting the Lord, like on the opposite side of, doing anything to prevent pregnancy. And so I thought, well, I have to trust the Lord. And I think then I came in contact with more couples who were trusting the Lord and yet were still taking steps to prevent pregnancy. And I was like, oh, I think you can be a faithful Christian that does ultimately trust what the Lord gives you while still working within natural law. And so anyways, that's kind of like where we've ended up. But
Yeah, because
it's a journey each couple.
It's never not trusting the Lord. It's like, as Christians, that's never really an option.
Yeah.
And I know what you were saying when you said that, Austin. It's like, okay, do we do nothing, at all? And we've been there too. Well, and again, I know this is our audience has listened to us, pontificate on and on about our, varying convictions around birth control, and how serious we are about our convictions.
Family planning.
Yeah, family planning. Exactly.
Birth control.
Yeah, exactly. Family
planning.
It's
Well,
funny,
we have talked
Clear.
Yeah, well, we have talked about birth control as well.
Yeah, sure.
That said, yeah, I feel like we are just in the exact same boat, where it's, you feel so humbled that the Lord has chosen to bless you with at least us, such good pregnancies, and just the ability to get pregnant and to, have a child, one after another. It's such a gift. And yet we're doing the math too, thinking, okay, like at this rate,
you want to do right by the kids you have.
You do.
I think
exactly.
that's a big thing for me too.
Because you brought up taking care of your wife, and then it's also taking care of your current children. I think there's a lot of, I don't think it's as, simple as maybe some people maybe in where I grew up, with 9 siblings. So I was one of 10, and my parents did not have any like conviction that you couldn't do anything to prevent or to space. Right. They weren't living with that conviction. And yet we ended up with 10 children. And so I say that all to say, I really do think that I appreciate you guys sharing what you shared. And I think we're right there with you.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it comes down to also being self-aware of, where your heart is, but then being able to trust that the Lord is guiding you in the decisions you make and giving you wisdom on those decisions. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even in regards to that, are you thinking, okay, am I thinking of my wife? Am I thinking of my other children? Or am I thinking of the golf that I'm not able to play? Like, one of these is different than the other, or am I thinking that I'm not going to be able to get as nice of a car?
Right.
If I have more, we can kind of go through, okay, what's causing the check here? That's causing me to pause. And is that something that could be of the Lord saying, hey, are you leading your family well? Okay, so I'm curious as to how, especially being a man, provision is a big part, I think, of, at least it was for me, okay, like, how am I going to provide, for my family financially? And and I will say this, Karaline, you were saying you wanted to like build a life with someone. And I was so blessed that Katie had that mindset. She didn't look at me when we were dating and say like, well, get your stuff together and then I'll consider, marrying you or joining your family. It was, I mean, hopefully she had confidence in me and on all those things. She's like, hey, let's go build something. Let's see what we can do here. And so how has that played out? Because I'm sure there's been ups and downs. I'm sure it can be a roller coaster at times. But has that been one of those things that you guys would say has been good for your marriage? Has been hard for your marriage? How do you guys feel about that?
I would say it's been good for our marriage 100%, because typically the hardest things are the best things, right? And finances is, I would say, probably top 3 things that we've had to talk about and work through, in our marriage. Like it's an ongoing thing. It's a lot of the time it's at the top of mind. And so, yeah, but it's been good because we've had to learn how to communicate through that. Right. And man, so many things on this topic. Like, I don't even know where to start. From the beginning, I will say the Lord has just taken really good care of us, and he's always provided. Right out as we got married, our bills were paid. We were able to save. And since then, it's just continued to grow, like every year, I think, year after year. And so we're thankful for that. But what's crazy, too, is the amount of different things that I've done over the last 4 years. And still, we've been able to move forward. And so
we have to get creative at times too, and just be like, sometimes it's easier to go out and make money, and sometimes it's easier to be like, where can we cut corners as far as like just saving
Yeah.
and being a little bit more frugal. And so finding that balance when it's like, okay, we do want to enjoy life. We want to make memories with our kids, but we also want to move the bigger future forward.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of like forethought and like, how are we going to make pieces together? And, there have been times where we've done like, flipping cars, which wasn't necessarily a career, but it was something we both enjoyed. We got to do it together.
Yeah.
Even though he was doing his own thing, and it was kind of like our rainy day money that we were just setting aside while flipping these cars. And it wasn't like a career path, we didn't want to get a dealer's license or anything, but it was something that we did that was like fun for, a couple months while it lasted. And then we moved on and we're like, okay, we feel like we have a better cushion. Now we can go back to just kind of like consistently stockpiling.
Balance is a huge thing for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up because I'm an all or nothing type of personality. Like I get my eyes set on something and I'll go like all the way. And I have a hard time finding that balance. So for me, I'm like, oh, okay, we're spending too much money. And I tighten it down like crazy. I'm like, okay, I know where every penny's going. We're not spending, single. And it's like, that's totally unnecessary. And it puts undue stress on your marriage. And like Karaline said, I think it's important to allow for money to be spent on memories and experiences, especially with your family and with your children. That's one of the biggest parts of life, right? Is enjoying it and creating those memories. I don't want to look back on our life and think of myself as a penny pincher or someone that never allowed us to have fun or do fun things, right? And so, but then sometimes I lose sight of it all completely, right? And it's like, oh wow, I don't know where any of the money is right now. And so
we got the someday maybe, and we just are living all right now.
And like you said too, do you want to focus on cutting the pie into smaller pieces or making the pie bigger? And I think that we've tried to put the emphasis more on making the pie bigger, but also in moderation, because naturally you make more money, you can easily spend more money too. But it's been really good for our marriage because we've had to talk through it like frequently,
It's had to be a team effort for sure. We were both coming together with a similar vision because I came into our marriage with a business that I love. I enjoy growing. I'm very entrepreneurial, and it was something that was fun because he would go to work and I felt like I had something to do as a stay-at-home wife with no kids. You can only clean 600 square feet top to bottom so many times before you're like, I need an outlet. And we only had one car, so I wasn't going places. It was just my 4 little corners. So for me, it was fun to have that outlet. And then as we started adding kids, obviously your attention's going a lot more places, and you got to be a lot more careful with when you're using your devices, how you're using your devices, and your time just becomes a lot more precious. So we've had to shift throughout our marriage where it was like, okay, Karaline can be all in on something. He's all in on something. And then we've had to come together and be like, okay, this is no longer working. You need to take this portion or take some things off my plate. And so we've had to kind of get creative and work as a team massively on a financial front, which has been really fun.
Yeah.
It's brought us closer together.
Money is not the end all be all. Like I remember this was one of the hardest decisions I felt like I made in our marriage. And it's so random because it was like $15K a year. I let go of a certain project that I had been doing for the last like 5 years, and it was consistent, and it was only an additional like $15,000 a year. But it had gotten to the point where I was working full time, sometimes long hours. And then I had that thing too. And we had to have a conversation of like, okay, we need more time with family. And so it was so clear to me, I'm letting go of $15,000 a year to spend more time with my family. And very hesitant, but came to a point where we're like, we need to do this. And the fruit from that was amazing. Right.
Well, it's cool. When you follow the Lord's leading, I feel like every time a door has closed, a window has opened or a back door has opened. And it was like instantly him letting go of that. His boss wanted him to get a raise, like literally almost simultaneously. So the crossover has been very like smooth. Yeah. And as he's chosen to let go of different work options, the Lord has provided in other ways. Yeah. So it's been interesting to just like fully trust that he's got us and make decisions based on that.
You guys are entrepreneurs. We are too. And it hasn't always been that way. Like I've worked for different people, but now like we're fully independent, and something that the Lord's working on my heart still is just trusting in him. And anytime I notice I start to like close my fists and be like, I'm going to figure it out by my own strength, like everything gets way worse instead of just letting go and trusting, but still being diligent in the things that you've put before me. And so that's a constant thing too.
Yeah, I mean, so many good things there. You guys were saying I mean, it makes sense. You guys are like professional coaches, honestly. It's like Caroline, you lead these huge teams, and like anytime Katie gets like a glimpse of it or hears anything, she's like, my word, this is like a professional coach here. But something that I want to point out is that both of you, I think, are not just hard workers. You guys have grown in capabilities. Honestly, from the time that and it's pretty wild, Austin, because I think I knew you as a teenager. We went to church together, and so even when you were 18, you had developed skill sets, and a lot of that's credit due to your parents, right? Developing skill sets within you and giving you opportunities, but then also a lot of the credit to you just figuring things out. It's because even when you said in passing, we flipped cars. It's like that was a win because you had this skill of like photography. It's like you take incredible photos.
Sweet.
Yeah, you'd buy these cars, you'd take incredible photos, be able to flip them and make a great profit. And that doesn't just happen. And I really admire that with both of you guys. And I love how you pointed out that trusting in the Lord and not getting stressed out doesn't mean not working heartily as unto him, right? Doesn't mean that working skillfully with your hands and really applying yourself. And I think that that's one of those things, going back to trusting the Lord, even, with children, a lot of times it's like, we think that trusting the Lord is like, what, like doing nothing? Like, of course that's not the case. And so I appreciate you pointed that out. And it's been really fun to see the growth that you guys have experienced. And with you, Caroline, you said, trust the Lord. You make a decision that seems like you're losing money in the moment, well, actually not seems like you are losing money in the moment, and then having so much peace down the road, be like, oh, that was just so obviously the right thing.
Yeah. I feel as I'm listening to you guys, I'm like flashing back to us 4 years married, 3 kids. And that was our most difficult season financially, was that 3 kids. Like we got pregnant with our 4th, we bought our first house. And it was that whole thing where, like you said, Caroline, it's like we were working together on things. Elisha quit his regular job right at that time, decided to go fully entrepreneurial. And then we had more kids than ever before. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, he's getting this other thing going. It's not bringing in a lot of money right now. And I felt overworked. He didn't like the situation. It was like this whole like shuffle of things to set up for the next stage of life. Cause like what had gotten us there wasn't going to get us, and I see you guys doing that right now, shuffling things around, and Austin doing real estate and day trading. I don't even know what all you're doing. Like you're an awesome guy to have on board. I admire you going like fully entrepreneurial, but also that's a big juggle when you have little kids and you're taking care of bills and responsibilities. And so anyways, I just really admire what you guys are doing, and I think you're doing a great job. How have you, Austin, helped Karaline with Monet in growing that and in keeping that running and going? How is she like, because I know you guys have done that as a team too.
So I'm a huge systems guy. I like being behind the scenes and making things work more efficiently, right? And so she's the face of the business, right? She's selling and doing her thing, reeling people in, creating content. On the back end, some things that I have done is focus more on customer retention, right? So we have a huge customer base and she's focused on getting more of them. You can lose sight of the ones you already have, right? And so customer retention, text message marketing is a huge one that we've implemented. I built a Discord server for our team, built that out. So we have different channels and everything. So it's extremely organized as far as team communication. Whenever we do team training, they know exactly where they can find the link. We have, all sorts of stuff in there. There's a questions channel. There's a before and after like reviews channel. It's all sorts of different things. And then I also worked on our website as well and teamed up with a buddy of mine. He helped with the bulk of it. And then I took it from there. And so we built a website for our business, and that's really streamlined things. So instead of Karaline having to walk, let's say, our new customers or business builders through this process manually, here's the link. It's like almost a click funnel. You go through and it's step-by-step everything you have to do. So things like that, those are just a few examples. And then of course, when I can, providing time for her to work on it as well. I can be with the kids, which I love. And so it's great to be able to do that together. Yeah.
Yeah, your systems are insane.
Yeah, I know.
Elisha and I were like drooling over the systems Austin created.
Yes, I know. Every time I hear about them, like, man, like we need you in our life, but it hasn't worked. So you guys bought your first house, which is really exciting. You had a baby, I think, within like a week of moving into your first house or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
you started your real estate business. You guys have always, and it kind of seems like that's on par. It seems like that's on brand for your life thus far. When you look back over these last 4 years, and again, that was an exceptional season of moving into your new home, having a baby, and starting real estate, things like that. Do you feel like you've been able to have these, I guess, these bookends or these things that you can count on, whether that's time in God's word, a date night? You mentioned church on Sunday. We were kind of like, okay, in the midst of craziness, we can count on this thing. Or is that the type of thing you feel like you want to integrate into your home? What does that look like for you?
Absolutely. Let's see. One of the things that I look forward to every day is I know that we're going to be together at the end of the night. And before we just go to bed, we're going to talk about the day. And, what was great? What are the wins? What could have been better? And making sure you just go to bed on the same page. I sleep way more peacefully when we do that. And so that's something I look forward to every day. It's just my time with her. In the evening after we put the kids to bed, it feels like a date night every night, right? And trying to maintain that. And so that's like super important to me.
I feel like we've gotten better at having those bookend moments because through the crazy, a lot of things can get just out of whack, just really out of balance. And then you're like, whoa, what is life even doing to us right now? You feel like life is driving you instead of you kind of driving your life. You're like, okay, we need to sit down. And so Austin has done a good job of prioritizing those times to be like, hey, Carol, we need to get in the office, lay out stuff and be like, okay, what habits do we want to keep really solid? What do we want to bring back into alignment? Because it did get crazy there for a minute where I was just like, I haven't picked up the word of God. Like I have my kids' Bible that I read them every morning, but like I need some time to just like actually pick up a real physical Bible and read it, And it's just like those moments. And, it's not like you can't pray throughout the day and have these little moments with the Lord, but like some things just get way out of whack. And so it's recalibrating, coming together, being like, where have we just lost sight of what's important to us?
Right.
What needs to stay first and foremost? Going to church consistently. We got a part of a life group because we just felt like we needed more things that we could look forward to in a week that were very consistent and scheduled.
Staples, pillars, really.
Yeah. And date nights haven't been.
Those have been tough.
Those have been tough because of babysitting. We don't trust a lot of people to just watch our kids.
No, we're very protective. I don't think there's such thing as being overprotective. And I'll say that on here.
But moving farther away from family has been a little tough because it's like an hour drive to get to us from any of our family. So but getting more integrated in our church has been helpful because now we're like getting to know couples on a better level where we're like, maybe we could do some trade-offs, So kind of going through this season of like, let's still prioritize each other, even though it may not be a date night, maybe it's once a month that we get like an actual night away. And we've done that probably at least every single month, but it hasn't been like a weekly consistent thing. But he does a good job of like checking in, like making sure he'll call me in between jobs, in between visiting houses, in between showings, be like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what's going on. And those are little points in my day that I always know I'm going to hear from Austin. Like my recent messages are all him calling me throughout my day. And I look forward to those. So it's like little moments that haven't been anything crazy, but there's things that I can rely on or expect. And they're little, but they make a big difference in a season of kind of just craziness where I can be like partly through my day communicating with Austin. Hey, this is what just went down with Quincy. I really need you to pray for me right now. We're kind of struggling it out, this afternoon. It's just nice to know he checks in. So,
and then things that we do try and make a staple is, time in God's word. And then we both love to work out as well and go to the gym, and I'll make time for her to do that. She'll make time for me to do that. That's another thing that's beautiful about being an entrepreneur. We can make time for that. And so both of those get out of whack, and we have to reel it back in and be like, okay, we need to make sure we're making these a priority because having pillars, I think, is foundational to propelling yourself forward in every area of life, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So, yeah.
Okay, so I know I want to let you guys go to bed or hang out with daddy and mama or whatever you need to do, but I want to.
Oh, daddy and mama are in a storage unit.
They're not here.
Great. Great. We'll just talk to you guys all night.
So there's no rush.
Yeah,
this is still a good night.
We're loving this.
Oh, good. Well, we're enjoying being able to visit with you guys. I'm curious, what is something, Karaline and Austin, individually, what is something you feel like your parents did to prepare you for life? Okay. So, because I hear so much when you guys are speaking up, like mindset wise, Austin, you mentioning right out of the gate there, that statement your dad said about responsibility. Like, I want our sons to hear that and to repeat those things to themselves. I feel like you guys were both very capable of adapting, and you guys continue to adapt and grow. And I expect like nothing different for your next like 10, 15, 20 years. That's what life is. Like, it's a constant adapting to different stressors coming your way. And you guys have like more than average all at one time.
Yes.
So what are some things that you guys feel like your parents did to prepare you for the life you're living now, or, years you've walked through before that?
And I want to say one more thing too, maybe before you answer, is because you said something that I wanted to point out earlier on when we were talking about maybe some unexpected challenges of marriage. And you said something that I think is so helpful, Austin. You're like, I don't really like dwell on those things. It's funny where like when Katie and I we'll remember something, a time in our marriage, we're like, that was carnage. Like, I can't believe that happened, or I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe we were in that place. And we don't live our life dwelling on that, right? It's just kind of like that happened and you moved on. I think that's a mindset that you guys have.
Hold it against your spouse.
Yeah, you don't hold it against your spouse. It's just kind of like, why would we choose to like fixate on that, moving forward? That's not going to bring life into our marriage. Anyways, that inspired me when you said that. Like I would hope I have the same thing when somebody's like, hey, what's, been a unique challenge in your marriage? It's like, man, I don't walk around thinking about what the unique challenges are, because there's so many blessings to think about.
Absolutely. To that point, I mean, there's been multiple times in my life, and I do remember this. I don't even remember what I was praying about, but I remember praying to the Lord, renew my mind, and honestly help me forget, help me to move on. We had an issue or something happened, right? Whether personally in the marriage, we worked through it. We made it right. Help me to move on. And I think part of that is it's repentance, right? It's 180, going in the opposite direction. And there's no need to look back on that, right? So I tried, but you can still learn from mistakes, of course. So making sure that you get the lesson out of it, but not dwelling on it 100%. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah.
Let's see, to your question. Karaline and I feel like spur each other on. And that's one of the things, like being married to Karaline, I'm so thankful for, is she's a driver and I'm a driver, but we reel each other in, we keep each other balanced, but we also push each other forward. And she's, we both have amazing parents and have instilled a lot of amazing mindsets. Growing up, I've learned things from her dad through her. And I think she's learned things from my parents through me. Growing up, my dad always said, you will rise to the level of responsibility you're given. He would also say, always do the hardest thing first. And from 8 years old, 10 years old, the practical thing was, okay, what's my least favorite subject in school? I got to do that first, and that it's little things like that. And you learn it at a young age and with very practical examples like school, or I got to take the trash out before I go do this other thing that is a to-do list, but I actually enjoy. Right. And then seeing that translate into life as you grow up, it's very important. You will always make time for the things that are easy, but if you don't prioritize the things that are hard, it's very easy to let them slip by, and they won't get checked off the list. Right. Let's see. Another thing, my dad, dude, growing up, we planted 1,200 vines in Oregon on our 3-acre property. And he decided that it'd be a great idea for us to do all the work. So he's talked about it many times. The sole purpose in that was to teach his children work ethic and how to work hard and to push through difficult things, right? I remember, again, being like, I think I was like 7, 8, 9 years old those years. Horrible allergies. We're out, like the sun's gone down and we're still like watering these vines, right? Or I'm mowing the yard and I go inside and, try and handle my allergies and all that. It's like, wow, what a day. But it taught me work ethic. And I even told my dad like a month ago, I was like, I want to do something like that with my family. I never even thought until literally the last few months that I would ever want farm animals or anything like that. And now recently I'm thinking, I think I want chickens, and we could have some horses and cows, whatever. And why? Because
Guys, both of our like greatest memories and our greatest pains and struggles were surrounding either animals or plants. And we came together on that. And I was like, I had 100 chickens that were my responsibility that I had to hand water at 8 years old. And he had 1,200 vines that he had to hand water at 8 years old.
Personally, still, I'm not a huge animal person. I could care less about cows or, whatever. But I do care about my children learning how to push through difficult situations and do hard things. And for that reason alone, I think it's changed my perspective on what is going to be important to me over the next 10, 20, 30 years as I'm raising our children. So
obviously our families didn't just talk the talk. Like both of them really walked out things, like put things in place. And I think of mommy and daddy, like when mommy would say, how you do something is how you do everything. That has literally rung through my head in so many different situations where I'm like, man, am I going to take the time to like actually scrub out the sink after I'm done with dishes? Am I going to take the time to pick up something on my way up the stairs? But I watched mommy do that over and over in the way she made her home, in the way she cared for us. She did things how she wanted to do everything in her life. And that was just to an excellent standard, an excellent level. So not only them telling us these things that are like these little one-liners, that just stick with you, that are kind of punchy, like those have stuck with me, but more so it was the action that backed them where you were like, wow, I got to watch that compounding effect of somebody's faithfulness really play out in their life. And when I think about the fruit that we want to reap in our family and in our marriage and in our kids, it's like it takes that diligence, doing things behind the scene when it's not fun, when nobody's looking, and doing it as unto the Lord and really just putting a smile on your face. And it's interesting. I've had many conversations just recently where people are like, how do you handle the overwhelm? And I was like, sometimes I do feel like a human dog pile. And if I can't, like, I feel like I'm going to cry in a certain situation, honestly, I will just laugh. I'm like, you've got, emotions, you've got choices. Choose what emotion are you going to choose, right? And so I had all 3 kids on me the other day and I was burping one and one was crying and another one had just gotten hurt. And I just felt like, Lord, like I just want to bawl. And I was like, okay, is this going to make the situation better? Or is this just going to compound this kind of negative trend in this afternoon? And I started laughing, just straight up, just laughed about it. And Quincy looked at me and she was like, instantly turns off her tears and she starts giggling. And then Riggs looked at her and he starts laughing. And by the end of the situation, we were all just dying laughing. We were like, this is hilarious. They didn't know why they were laughing, but I think how how you react to things, how you respond in a certain situation can really turn things around quickly, especially with littles. And that's something that I feel like I watched Mama do. Like mommy would break into hysterics at times where she was just like, this is hilarious. The cows are out, dinner's burning, I'm pregnant, and she would just choose to laugh about it and put a smile on her face, which then made that whole atmosphere for our whole family change. And so that's something that I've been working on. Just like, if you have to choose whether to have a sour attitude or laugh, just think about those times, laugh about them. You get through it at the end of the day, but how do you want to get through it? Do you want to be like, oh man, this is just awful and I just have to like keep beating through? Or do you want to just like choose? We are the sum of our choices. And I think that's so important to remember. And Daddy and Mama lived that out so beautifully for us kids.
And these are the days. I mean, we're going to be looking back 3 years from now and be like, remember the days? Like these are those days, right? And so being able to take a step back and celebrate the wins. And enjoy the process, fall in love with the process. I mean, because that is your life. If you keep looking forward and never, remember to be present and enjoy the journey, then you're going to blink, your life's going to be over. And you're like, man, I never got there. I never got to celebrate.
The playhouse is the best part of the playhouse. Let's just say that, Then once your playhouse is built, you want to add a zip line out the window or do something. Sometimes I have to remember like, yeah, this isn't playhouse. This is real life. But building is the most fun part. Like, what do you want to do once you arrive? Sit there and eat bonbons? Like, no, there's always new places to go. And we always grow because that's how the Lord, instilled in us. We were instilled to work, grow, have these mindsets where it's like, yeah, your carrot seems great now. Once you chew it, you're going to want a bigger carrot. That's just life. So if you can't enjoy what the Lord is, has your hands in right now, you're not going to enjoy where you're going to end up. So that's something that I feel like our parents just have taught us by the way they lived and by the way they've exemplified. But yeah.
I love how you said you're going to get through everything. At the end of the day, you're going to get through it. How are you going to get through it? I think that's really profound because it's true. You do end up getting through everything by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And Elisha, I am not good at oh, let's laugh something off. Or like Elisha's really good though in arguments, or when kids are stressed out or when I'm stressed out, he says something funny and we all laugh. And it just relieves the pressure in the room. And I'm always so grateful. Like I could not think of something funny to say right now, but
Well, Katie said something. I don't know.
that.
Yeah. And I was reminded of it, this is your children's like permanent childhood, meaning their memories they're going to have for forever. And so the stress will pass away, right? The chaos of the tears and the sick kids and the spit up and the morning sickness or whatever, all of that will pass away, but their memories that they have from this are being formed now. And they're going to remember whether or not dad had a stressed out scowl on his face every time he came home, or whether he was able to be jovial and laugh about things. And I just remember that because it's like stress it's going to come and go. It's like what I feel right now about bills or about anything like that won't be here 10 years from now. Like those bills are going to be somewhere else for somebody else. I'll have new bills, I'll have new stresses. And yet, but how I'm handling myself in the midst of this, my children will remember, this is their childhood. Anyways, thank you for sharing that. That was so good. So good, you guys. Karaline, we want our audience to be able to find you. Instagram is probably the best place. Is that right? To find you?
Yes.
That's fantastic. We'll link that below. Because you create so much awesome content over there. And so we'd love our audience to follow you.
And Austin, do you have an online presence for the real estate?
I have a social media profile, but I really don't. And it's one of those things I've gone back and forth on. I'm not sure how I feel about an online presence personally. I think for me, not for any other reason besides it's a distraction for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to keep tunnel vision right now. And there's all these things I could be doing, but it's going to be way more effective if I just do 2 or 3 of them. And so, you probably won't see me posting much content on social media, but you'll see a lot about me on The Life of a Girl.
Nice.
She's constantly,
you're a big part of my life. What can I say?
Yeah. So
nice. Well, so do you serve the greater Treasure Valley area when it comes to real estate?
Absolutely. All of Idaho. So I'm licensed in all of Idaho. And,
so can we put your email down below in case people are wanting to work with you? Does that work?
That's perfect.
Okay, fantastic. We'll do that. There's just going to always be people moving from California to Boise. That's still just going to keep happening.
It's true.
Idaho's the best place to raise a family.
It is. Awesome. Well, Karaline, Austin, thank you so much for really giving us your evening. It's been so fun.
Postpartum evening.
Yeah. This is next level. We really appreciate you guys.
You guys. We look up to you guys in so many ways. Yes, it's not even funny. And I think for us, watching our parents has been great. But guys, I'm just going to say how it is. Having older siblings that are willing to go first and be in that same season of life, but further down the road, but not quite as far as your parents. Because sometimes I ask mom of something and I'm like, I think she's forgotten a little bit about like what it was like to be like right here. And then I'm like, you know what? If I call Katie or Kyla, I bet they'll have a little bit more understanding. Not that mama doesn't, but like have a little bit more like here now helpfulness. And so watching you guys pave the way has really encouraged us in so many ways. We look up to you guys a ton from afar on the other side of Idaho going like, wow, that would be amazing to be where they're at in, 6-7 years when we're their age. And we just really appreciate you guys being faithful to what the Lord has called you to, because you guys encourage us just as much now as our parents did in our growing up years. And you're having a huge ripple effect still on your families, being older siblings in both of them. And so I just appreciate your guys' faithfulness and your way that you guys steadfastly move forward, love each other, love your family, and love the Lord. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your example. I mean, I think so many times, like in a situation, trying to figure out what I should do with the kids or whatever, what would Elisha do? What would Katie do? And I'm serious.
You're so sweet.
Oh, you guys, that's so kind.
You should cry over
You're crying. You're crying. You cried.
I'm kind of crying too, but I'm postpartum. How would you excuse?
Yeah, I'm not even postpartum right now.
Because I would say where we are today, we just keep saying, this is so sweet. This is so sweet. And it is. And like where you guys are at is so sweet too. But like just the sheer volume of what's coming at you is like so fresh. And And so it's a precious season, but it's also a very overwhelming season. And I think you guys are handling it with so much grace. You guys are rocks to so many people around you. You're rocks in our family. And you're young, and yet you're being those supports to so many people. And so just keep up the good work.
Yeah.
You're doing a wonderful job. And we're just so proud of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, we really are.
So proud to be related to you.
Yes.
Same. Feelings mutual.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Excited to see you soon. Probably not in Bend, because it sounds like you're never going there again. But no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
We'll be in Bend in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
we'll
I'll
probably
be
see
in
you.
bed the week after that. So,
Yeah.
we have said no to something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what, but
Okay. We'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having fun. See ya.
Love you.